I always believed family was sacred, until the day my parents handed my sister a luxury villa and gave me an empty parking lot. They laughed, telling me, "At least you can sleep under the stars." My hands trembled as their laughter echoed, not from the cruelty alone, but from the realization that maybe I had been blind my whole life. What if the people you trust most are quietly destroying you? I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I chose silence, because sometimes the best revenge is not fire, but strategy. And my story is only beginning. I grew up in a home where the golden rule was simple: family first. My parents repeated it like scripture, drilling it into me and my sister with every holiday dinner, every Sunday morning, every late-night lecture. If family needed you, you showed up. No excuses, no boundaries. That mantra shaped me into the woman I became, the reliable daughter, the one who picked up the phone at 2 a.m. when my mother called, the one who wired money when my father said he just needed a little help, the one who gave without ever daring to ask for anything back. But what happens when that mantra is a trap? When family first doesn't mean unity, but obedience? I look back now and wonder, have you ever given everything to your family, only to feel invisible in return? That's the part nobody tells you about loyalty. It can become a leash. When I was young, the love my parents gave me felt intoxicating. They praised me whenever I sacrificed, whenever I gave in, whenever I put my sister's needs before mine. "That's our good girl," they would say, kissing my forehead, telling me how proud they were. It felt warm, safe, even holy. But there was always a catch. The moment I wanted something for myself, the moment I pushed back, their faces hardened. Silence, guilt, or cold laughter replaced affection. Looking back, I see it clearly now. It wasn't unconditional love. It was conditional compliance. What I thought was love was just a carefully disguised form of control. As I got older, the cracks widened. The calls in the middle of the night turned from emergencies to demands. My mother would sob, saying, "If you really loved us, you'd help." My father would remind me of the sacrifices they made raising me, as if I were forever indebted. And when I hesitated, even for a second, the guilt came crashing down. "Do you want us to suffer? Do you want the family to fall apart because of you?" They always knew the right words to pierce me. Then there was the money. At first, it was small. Help with a bill here, a loan there. But it grew. My parents began to lean on me constantly, and my sister, curiously, never seemed to be asked for the same. I became the invisible safety net, the daughter whose worth was measured in dollars and sacrifices. I should have seen the signs, the manipulations, the guilt trips, the way they minimized my achievements. But I didn't want to. I told myself, they love me. Families fight, families struggle. This is normal. Until one night, something shifted. My sister's birthday was coming, and I noticed she was unusually secretive. She laughed at her phone constantly, hiding it when I walked by. One evening, curiosity pried me open. I borrowed her laptop while she was in the shower. That's when I found it. The group chat. My parents, my sister, some cousins, and not me. Message after message mocked me. My clothes, my job, even the fact that I was still single. "Claire will probably bring some cheap bottle of wine again," my sister typed, followed by laughing emojis. My mother replied, "At least she's good for paying the bills." I froze, my chest tightened, eyes burning. They weren't just using me, they were laughing about it together. My family, the people I thought I was bleeding for, had created a private corner of the world where I was nothing more than the butt of their jokes. When I closed the laptop, silence roared in my ears. I got in my car and drove. The night was heavy, and I didn't even know where I was going. I parked in a lonely lot, one of those forgotten corners of town, and just sat there. The radio played an old song from my childhood, a tune my mother used to hum when she braided my hair. The memory should have comforted me, but instead, tears rolled down my face. Because now I knew the truth. That melody wasn't safety. It was a weapon. It had always been used to pull me back in, to keep me obedient. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to say the words out loud. They don't love me. They love what I give them. The weight of that realization pressed down on me like lead. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened, trying to hold myself together. Have you ever had that moment when the ground beneath you gives way, and you realize your foundation was a lie? That was me, sitting in the dark, headlights off, crying quietly so no one could hear. And yet, even then, I tried to rationalize. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe it was just a joke, families tease. Maybe if I tried harder, gave more, they'd see me. They'd finally love me the way I had always loved them. But deep down, another voice whispered, a voice I hadn't heard before. It told me that the red flags had been waving for years, and I had ignored them because the truth was too painful. It told me that this wasn't the end of the betrayal. It was only the beginning. Because the real knife wasn't the group chat. It was still waiting, hidden in the pages of a will I hadn't yet read. The will reading was supposed to be a formality. My parents had hinted at it for weeks, assuring me that everything would be fair. I dressed conservatively, trying to look composed, telling myself this was just paperwork, nothing more. My sister sat across from me, legs crossed, flashing that smug smile I had learned to fear. The lawyer opened the envelope, cleared his throat, and began. To the eldest daughter, Melissa. He paused for effect. The family villa, including all furnishings, deeds, and future rights. Applause, actual applause, broke out from the relatives who had come to witness. My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue, whispering, "She deserves it." And to the younger daughter, Claire, my pulse pounded. This was the moment. Recognition, validation, something. The family parking lot, currently vacant, valued at. His voice trailed into a blur of numbers I didn't hear. A ripple of laughter ran through the room. My sister covered her mouth dramatically, stifling a giggle. My father leaned close, his hand on my shoulder, and whispered so only I could hear. A good daughter knows how to give way. You'll understand one day. My vision blurred. Heat rose to my cheeks, my fists trembling in my lap. Every cell in me screamed to stand up, to shout, to demand justice. But I froze. I smiled a weak, mechanical smile, as if their cruelty hadn't gutted me. Claire wanted to scream, but what was coming next would cut deeper than this humiliation. Weeks later, I collapsed. Not metaphorically, my body gave out. I had been working overtime, paying bills my parents shoved my way, skipping meals to keep my head above water. One morning, on my way to work, my chest tightened and the world tilted. By the time I hit the ground, I couldn't breathe. Strangers called an ambulance. I thought surely my family would rush to the hospital, that this would be the moment they finally showed me I mattered. But they didn't come. Not a single call, not a single text. My phone stayed silent. The battery full, but the screen cold. Instead, it was my best friend, Hannah, who appeared. She barged into the hospital room with flowers, her face pale with worry. "Claire," she whispered, holding my hand, "I thought I'd lose you. The doctor said it was exhaustion, stress, malnutrition, lack of rest." I nodded, though inside I broke. Because in that sterile white room, hooked to IVs, I finally understood the truth I had been running from. My family didn't just fail me, they had abandoned me. Hannah stayed through the night. She told me stories, made me laugh between tears, brought me warm soup. For the first time in years, I felt cared for without conditions. And in that gentle space, I allowed myself to cry, really cry, like a child again. My sobs were quiet at first, then violent, ripping through me as I clutched her hand. Hannah didn't pull away. She just held on, whispering, "You don't deserve this, none of it, and you don't have to keep giving them everything." It was a moment of rest, of vulnerability, of being seen. And yet beneath the tears, something sharp was forming, a thought, a seed, small but undeniable. If my family had chosen to discard me, then I was free to stop playing their game. I returned home with new eyes. My parents didn't ask about my health. My sister smirked, asking if I had fainted from drama. I laughed along, pretending to be the same old Claire, obedient, docile, naive. But inside I was no longer the same. I began to collect quietly. Receipts for every bill they forced me to cover. Screenshots of texts dripping with manipulation. Voicemails where my mother sobbed for money, followed by laughter in the background. Each piece slipped into a hidden folder on my laptop, labeled innocuously as work notes, and I pretended. I played dumb. I smiled when my sister bragged about her villa renovations. I nodded when my father scolded me for not being supportive enough. I handed over money with a meek shrug, just as they expected. But every act of compliance was an act of camouflage. Because while they laughed at me, mocked me, drained me, I was no longer their blind, loyal daughter. I was a shadow with open eyes, and behind those eyes I was building something, slowly, quietly, strategically. The betrayal had broken me, yes, but it had also awakened me. They thought I was still the same weak Claire. They thought I would keep bending until I snapped. But I had already stopped bending. I was waiting. And when the time came, the same family who left me to die would never see the strike coming. I learned quickly that rage was useless. Rage only made me reckless, and recklessness was exactly what they expected. So instead of screaming, I watched. Instead of demanding, I collected. Every word, every receipt, every inconsistency became a thread in a web I was weaving, quietly, invisibly. The villa haunted me. It wasn't just the humiliation of losing it. It was the way my sister flaunted it on social media. Photos of marble staircases, infinity pools, designer furniture, captions like, "Hard work pays off." Hard work? She had never worked a day in her life. That villa wasn't hers. It was stolen on the back of my sacrifices. One night, curiosity pulled me deeper than I intended. I searched public records, property deeds, and financial filings. At first, it was routine, but then I saw it. The villa had a lien against it. My breath caught. A second document confirmed it. The house had been mortgaged twice, and not just under my sister's name. My mother's signature appeared right next to hers. I stared at the screen, the glow illuminating my trembling hands. If this truth came out, their empire of lies would crumble. But I wasn't ready. not yet. If this truth is exposed, I whispered to myself, the whole family will collapse, but I need the right moment. Days blurred into nights as I dug deeper. Bank statements, court filings, quiet visits to the county records office. Piece by piece, their facade cracked open. But gathering evidence wasn't enough. I needed allies. Hannah, my best friend, was the first to join me. She had already proven her loyalty in the hospital, and now she became my confidant. "You're not crazy," she told me when I showed her the mortgage papers. "They've been using you, and it's time you stop letting them." But even with Hannah, I knew I needed more. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer under the pretense of estate planning. His office was sleek, filled with books that smelled of power and history. He adjusted his glasses as I laid out copies of the documents. He didn't flinch. Instead, he nodded slowly, tapping his pen. "You've been wronged. You know that. But wrong isn't enough in court. You'll need airtight proof and a strategy. Do you have patience?" "Yes," I said, surprising even myself. Patience became my weapon. And then came the twist I hadn't expected, my Aunt Margaret. She was my mother's older sister, someone I had always seen as distant, even cold. But one afternoon, she called me unexpectedly. "Claire," she said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. "I know what they've done to you. Meet me." We met at a small diner off the highway, the kind with chipped coffee cups and stale pie. She slid into the booth across from me, eyes sharp. "Your parents aren't who you think they are," she said. I almost laughed. Too late, I wanted to say. But then she pulled out a worn envelope and pushed it across the table. This is what they never wanted you to see." Inside were ledgers, receipts, photocopied checks, a slush fund, a secret account my parents had used for years, funneling money under false names, hiding assets from taxes, from family, from me. My stomach turned. My parents weren't just manipulative, they were criminals in plain sight. I felt dizzy, betrayal layered on betrayal, until it nearly crushed me. I wanted to scream, to run, to collapse into the arms of someone safe. Instead, I excused myself, drove home, and booked an emergency therapy session. Sitting across from my therapist, I finally let the mask slip. I spoke for nearly an hour without stopping. About the group chat, the will, the hospital, the mortgage, the envelope. Words spilled like blood from an open wound. When I finished, I felt hollow, raw, exposed. My therapist looked at me gently. "Claire, you've been carrying this alone for too long. You're not weak for feeling broken. You're human." Her words cracked something inside me, and tears streamed down my face. For once, I didn't try to hold them back. I was vulnerable, fragile, a mess of contradictions. And yet, for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. If you were me, would you forgive them? Or would you expose them for what they truly are? That night, I sat at my desk, the envelope from Aunt Margaret spread open before me. My heart pounded as I stared at the damning evidence. Every number, every forged signature, every shadowed transfer. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft. It was corruption. And as the clock ticked past midnight, one truth crystallized in my mind. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't helpless. I had the receipts. And with them, I could finally burn down the kingdom they had built on my back. Christmas Eve has always been sacred in our family. An elaborate dinner, every relative dressed in their finest, laughter echoing through the villa's dining room. That year, though, the air felt different to me. I arrived not as the discarded daughter, but as the silent strategist carrying a storm in my bag. My documents, my recordings, my secrets, everything I had collected sat on a flash drive tucked neatly into my purse. But I didn't intend to use them all. Not yet. The dinner began with polished silverware, clinking glasses, and my sister boasting about her villa renovations. "We're thinking of adding a second pool," she announced, her diamond bracelet glittering under the chandelier. My parents nodded approvingly, casting me the same dismissive glance they always did, as if I were merely a shadow at the table. I let them. I smiled, played the role, sipped my wine. But when the main course was served, I stood, glass in hand. The room quieted. My father frowned, my mother stiffened, my sister smirked. "I'd like to make a toast," I said, my voice calm. They expected sentiment. They expected weakness. But what came next froze every fork in midair. "I want to raise a glass," I said, "to truth, to the secrets we bury, the debts we hide, and the masks we wear, even at Christmas." Silence, uneasy shifting. My mother's hand twitched, gripping her napkin. My father cleared his throat. My sister sneered. And then softly I added, "Some houses are built on love. Others are built on lies. The question is, how long before the walls collapse?" The words hung like smoke. My relatives glanced at one another, confusion sparking whispers. My parents didn't move. My sister's smile faltered, and for the first time I saw it in the crack of fear behind her eyes. Claire stood, raising her glass, and with those words, no one could swallow another bite of dinner. I didn't drop the bomb, not yet. I only let suspicions seep in, planting seeds of doubt in every corner of the room. If I revealed everything, the story would end too soon. Instead, I wanted them to unravel themselves, to fight, to turn on each other, to let paranoia devour them from the inside. And it worked. Within days, tension erupted. My sister accused my parents of leaking financial troubles. My parents demanded explanations for missing funds. Cousins whispered about inheritances. The unity they had paraded for years shattered, replaced with cracks that spread faster than I could have imagined. But they weren't done with me. No, when their kingdom started to crumble, they needed a scapegoat. And who better than the bitter, jealous daughter? Within a week, my family launched their counterattack, a smear campaign. It began online, posts about how I was mentally unstable, whispers in the community that I was a manipulator, a liar, even a thief. My sister uploaded smiling photos of her villa, captioned with vague digs. "Some people can't stand others' happiness." My parents hinted at family betrayal to anyone who would listen. For a moment, their campaign worked. Neighbors looked at me differently, colleagues asked quiet questions, and I felt that old sting of humiliation returning, as if I were back in the lawyer's office, clutching an empty inheritance while the room laughed. But then came the twist no one expected. A cousin, someone I had always assumed was indifferent, sent me a message. Attached was a video. My heart pounded as I pressed play. It was footage secretly recorded at a family gathering of my parents and sister mocking me, discussing how to keep her quiet and use her money without her knowing. Their voices were clear, their faces undeniable. I didn't release it. I didn't have to. My cousin did. Overnight, the clip spread online. Thousands of strangers saw the truth, saw me not as the villain, but as the victim. The tide turned. Messages flooded in from people I had never met. Words of encouragement, stories of their own toxic families, declarations that I was not alone. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen as comments poured in. We believe you. You deserve better. Stay strong. Tears welled, blurring the light of my laptop. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest lifted, if only slightly. Have you ever felt the internet become your courtroom? Do you believe strangers can be the jury that delivers justice when your own blood betrays you? I wiped my eyes, inhaling deeply. The smear campaign had failed. Their lies, their manipulation, their power, it was all slipping away. And the best part? I hadn't even revealed my strongest evidence yet. The villa, the mortgage, the secret accounts, they were still waiting, locked away in my folder. I had only shown them shadows. The real storm was still to come. The fallout came faster than I ever imagined. Once the video spread and whispers of fraud began to circulate, my parents could no longer hide behind their reputation. Neighbors who once admired them crossed the street to avoid them. Old friends stopped returning calls. At church, people looked away as they walked down the aisle. The proud image they had built over decades collapsed like a house of cards, and for the first time, I saw shame flicker across their faces. My sister fared no better. The villa, her crown jewel, became an anchor around her neck. Word spread about unpaid loans, missed payments, creditors circling like vultures. She posted desperate updates online, insisting she was fine, but the sparkle had dimmed. Her husband threatened to leave, creditors threatened to sue, and before long, the inevitable happened. The villa was repossessed. I attended the auction quietly, blending in among strangers and investors. My sister wasn't there. Perhaps she couldn't bear to watch her palace sold to the highest bidder. My parents sat in the back, their faces pale, their eyes avoiding mine. When the bidding began, I kept still, patient until the final moment. Then, with a calm hand, I raised my card. The gavel struck. The villa was mine. Gasps rippled through the room, and I felt the weight of their stares. But this wasn't victory, not yet. I walked out with the deed in my hand and a plan no one could have predicted. Because I hadn't bought the villa for myself, I had bought it to destroy its meaning. Claire hadn't bought the villa for herself. She had something far bigger in mind. Renovations began quietly. The marble floors were polished, but not for cocktail parties. The guest rooms were redesigned, not for family vacations, but for survivors. Within months, the villa was reborn, not as a symbol of my sister's entitlement, but as a shelter for women escaping toxic families, abusive partners, and lives of manipulation like mine. The first time I opened the doors, 3 women arrived, carrying nothing but duffel bags and bruised hearts. They looked at me with hesitation, unsure if they could trust this sanctuary. But as days passed, I watched their shoulders lighten, their laughter return, their fear slowly fade. One evening, as I walked through the garden, a young mother approached me. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You saved us. You gave us a chance to breathe again." Her little girl clung to her leg, smiling shyly. I knelt down, hugged them both, and for the first time in years, I felt something pure, a sense of purpose beyond revenge. In that moment, I cried too, because this wasn't about proving my family wrong anymore. It was about building something right, something they could never touch. Do you think this is the real victory? Not humiliating the ones who hurt you, but creating light where there was once only darkness? The villa became a beacon. News outlets picked up the story. Disowned daughter transforms family mansion into refuge. Reporters flocked, cameras rolled, and suddenly my name wasn't whispered in pity. It was spoken in admiration. The public called me resilient, brave. Survivors called me a lifeline. And soon a newspaper headline gave me a name I never asked for but couldn't deny. The Phoenix Woman. The daughter who rose from ashes and built wings of her own. It was surreal, hearing strangers call me that. Yet deep inside, it felt true. I had burned, I had crumbled, I had been nothing but dust. But from that destruction, I had rebuilt not only myself, but a sanctuary for others. That, I realized, was justice, not just for me, but for anyone who had ever been betrayed by the people they trusted most. My parents and sister? They still lived nearby, shadows of their former selves. I saw them sometimes, watching from a distance as women arrived at the shelter, welcomed into the home they had once claimed as their legacy. Their faces twisted with bitterness, but I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't even need their apology. Because justice had already been served, and I had already won. Freedom, I learned, doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in small choices, steady steps, each one carving a new path away from chains you once thought were permanent. For me, it began with silence. No more late-night calls, no more guilt-laden requests, no more letting their voices dictate my worth. I went no contact. I blocked numbers, filtered emails, and built a wall thicker than any inheritance could buy. At first, the quiet felt strange, almost unbearable, like walking through a house where every clock had stopped. But slowly, that silence became peace. Then the knock came. It was a rainy evening when I opened my door and found my parents standing there, damp and weary. Their eyes, once sharp with judgment, now sagged with desperation. My father cleared his throat, his pride trembling with every word. "Claire, we need your help. The debts, we can't keep up." My mother's hands shook as she added, "We're not asking for much, just a little. You have so much now, can't you share?" For a moment I faltered. The child in me, conditioned to obey, wanted to open the door, to let them in, to give. My hand tightened on the frame, the rain dripping from their coats pooling at my feet. I remembered the hospital, the empty phone, the laughter in their secret chat. I remembered the villa, the whispered insult. A good daughter knows how to give way. I looked at them, and for the first time felt nothing. No rage, no yearning, just clarity. Slowly, I shook my head. No. Their faces shifted, shock, anger, then a flicker of shame. I didn't argue, I didn't explain. I simply closed the door, gently, almost tenderly, as if sealing a coffin. On the other side, I heard muffled voices, then footsteps fading into the storm. Inside, I exhaled. My knees trembled, but my heart was steady. The old Claire would have broken down. The new Claire had chosen herself. Life after that was not just survival, it was expansion. The parking lot they once mocked me for became the foundation of an empire. At first, it was a simple business, hourly parking, weekend flea markets. But vision grows when you're no longer suffocated. I reinvested, built stages, lighting, sound systems. Soon, that empty lot transformed into a venue. Weddings under fairy lights, concerts that pulsed into the night, festivals that drew laughter and joy from every corner of the city. People called it the event empire. To me, it was more than profit. It was reclamation. The very land they had mocked became the soil where my future thrived. Every ticket sold, Every celebration hosted was another reminder that I had built something from nothing, from ridicule, from ashes. And then came the final twist, so sharp it almost felt scripted. My sister, stripped of her villa, drowning in broken pride, reached out. Her daughter was getting married. She wanted the reception at my venue. I read her email twice, my lips curving into a smile that held no bitterness, only release. The irony was perfect. The girl who once laughed that I could sleep under the stars now begged for a place under my lights. When I replied, it was short, polite, but firm. No. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need her humiliation. My smile, the peace in my chest, was enough. And yet that refusal echoed louder than any speech, any evidence, any courtroom victory. Because it showed, finally and forever, that I owed them nothing. They once laughed when they gave me an empty parking lot. Now they stood outside its gates, watching as music soared, lights shimmered, and strangers celebrated lives filled with love and joy. They laughed when they gave me a parking lot. Now they stand outside the fence, watching. And I walked inside, surrounded by my chosen family, friends, survivors, allies, my real family. The arc of my life had bent from betrayal to strategy to justice, and finally to liberation. From ashes I rose. From silence I built an empire. From rejection I created belonging. And this time I wasn't just surviving, I was free.